My name is Laura Noble and I'm an employment attorney. The reason I became an employment attorney is because I have always been passionate about protecting people's civil rights, and it spoke to me in a profound way that this kind of work would help me work with people who have been mistreated in the workplace. And I get the opportunity every day to help people improve their lives and help them work through what is often one of the worst periods of their lives when they have been wrongfully terminated from a position that they love. I love the work that I do being an advocate for workers because I can often help them improve the situation in their life. However, during that work, it became apparent to me that there's some structural barriers in the American workplace that need to be addressed if we are actually going to get to a place where people live in a society that has a fair and humane workplace, so work with dignity. For instance, the rise of requiring individuals to sign away their right to a jury trial in order to get a job, the forced arbitration clauses in employment contracts, has had a real impact on individuals who are mistreated in the workplace because they're losing their ability to bring that issue to a jury of their peers, as is their constitutional right. They're being forced into a private adjudication, a private court, if you will, where they have to pay for the right to go and get their concerns addressed. And that is a significant problem in the workplace. I became aware that we have increasingly put judges on the federal benches who are not fairly and fully enforcing the workplace protections that we have. And that causes me a significant amount of concern. I can't advocate for people's rights under the law if we have judges that aren't fairly enforcing those provisions. And then the laws themselves, Title VII, which provides protection, is our basic federal right that provides protection for people from discrimination or retaliation in the workplace. That law has not been looked at and revised in 25 years. And there are some significant problems with it, that it needs to be modernized and brought up to speed so that it actually provides protections for more individuals. For instance, it only provides protection for people who work for an employer that has 15 or more employees. If you live in a state like North Carolina that doesn't have its own workplace protection law, then you could be working for an employer that has 10 or less employees and be subject to all forms of sexual harassment, racial discrimination, retaliation for whistleblowing, and you would have no rights under the law to bring that employer to justice. And that's a real concern for me. And then, of course, looking at fair and livable wages and benefits. In many places like North Carolina, the minimum wage hasn't been raised in a very long time, and it makes it exceedingly difficult for working Americans to meet their financial obligations on $7.25 an hour. And there's little that I can do to assist workers in that capacity, as an employment lawyer. There's little that I can do just in my advocacy role for individual clients to change those structural barriers to really justice in the workplace. So I was delighted to discover that there's a group called Stand Up for Workers that is actively engaged in breaking down those barriers so that we can create an American workforce that is on equal footing with their employers, right? So that we can move the needle in the power so that the employees can stand up and say, no, you don't get to take away my right to a jury trial. You don't get to force me into arbitration. You don't get to sexually harass me just because you don't have 15 employees. You don't get to pay me a wage that I can't even live on if I work full time. And you don't get to ignore the laws that are in place. And so we're a group of attorneys and advocates that are dedicated to finding ways to break down those barriers. Stand Up for Workers is a national organization, so we are primarily looking at federal level issues. So if we can get federal laws around these issues, it can have an enormous impact for everybody in the American workforce. There have been some bills introduced, particularly around the forced arbitration question, around sexual harassment laws. But we would like to see a look at how Title VII is working in 2021, 2022, and ask the lawmakers to commit themselves to strengthening that very important federal protection in the workplace, because that is the law that you go to for issues like sexual harassment, sexual discrimination, retaliation, and the like. We have primarily been a fundraising organization that is supporting candidates at the Senate, U.S. Senate level and U.S. Congressional level who believe in these values, who will, once they become lawmakers or continue to be lawmakers, will dedicate themselves to working with us to creating laws, revising laws, looking at different provisions, ways that we can work together to achieve these common goals. Stand Up for Workers contributed significantly to Senator Warnock's campaign, and we believe that our contribution pushed the needle in his favor, so he was ultimately able to win his seat in Georgia. So we were very proud of the work that we did there. As you know, the senatorial races in Georgia were extremely close and very important in terms of moving the Senate into the Democratic control. And while we are nonpartisan, we have found that most of our issues align with folks who identify as Democrats. We're certainly open to talking to anyone who believes in these values and goals. But our primary objective is to find candidates who are committed to changing laws that will improve the lives of the American worker. And we've identified these 4 issues as our primary issues. So if a candidate is supportive of these issues, wants to work on changing laws, revising laws, introducing laws, then they will have our support. I've really enjoyed my work with Stand Up for Workers because it gave me an outlet for the frustration that I experience on an almost daily basis with my clients about the legal barriers that are put in place, I believe unfairly, to put workers at a disadvantage to justice. And, I'm pro-employer. I'm a small business owner. I believe that we need to have robust and healthy businesses in place for everybody's benefit, for the economy, for the workers' benefit. I'm a strong supporter of businesses. And I think we have to make sure that workers have some power in that dynamic. Otherwise, we will see an enormous amount of abuse of workers, as we historically have. Before we had a 40-hour work week, businesses would ask their workers to work 50, 60, 70 hours unpaid. That wasn't fair. So the laws are put in place to make it fair, to make work with dignity available to everyone. Not to put employers out of business, that's the last thing I want, but to make it an environment where people can work in a way that's conducive to their personal well-being, their economic well-being, their mental health, and contribute to the business and contribute to society and the economy overall. To do that, we need to have rules that make it fair for everyone. And that's simply what we're asking for, that make it a fair and safe workplace for everyone. The work that I'm doing with Stand Up for Workers, unlike other work that I do, is one that I hope disappears at some point, in the sense that I hope that we are all so on board with instituting these kind of workplace fairness rules that it becomes accepted everywhere and we don't have to keep talking about it. So, and I think, with the changes due to the pandemic and so many people re-examining their work-life balance and re-examining what they want to get up and do every day, we're seeing so many people resign, and I think a big part of that is that the employers have not done a good job of creating a fair and safe workplace. And so those employers who continue down that path are going to lose more and more employees. Employers who embrace workers' rights, creating a fair and safe workplace, are going to be successful. And so incorporating these sort of common sense principles into law should only buttress and help those employers who are already doing the right thing. I encourage everyone to check out the website of Stand Up for Workers, which is standupforworkers.org, and donate. It's a fundraising entity. Its primary purpose is to raise money so that we can ensure lawmakers are in place who support these values. I know there's a lot of content out there that's not about dry legal issues, but this is so important. I appreciate your attention and your interest, and I strongly encourage you to go to Stand Up for Workers website and the Noble Law website to learn more.